Hello dear learners, I am back again with yet another interesting module on environmental disasters and its impact on society. By going through the last 3 modules, you must have got a basic idea of the concept of environment and society and understood the social relationship with the environment as they have changed over time and variations from place to place. You must have also understood the concept of sustainable development, the evolution of environment in the context of society, how it has reached its present form, and understood the variations in a systematic way. Now let us try and understand what environmental disasters are and how it has impacted our society on a whole. Environmental disasters and its impact on the society. We all know that disasters strike on vulnerable societies. It can be man-made or natural. Various natural hazards such as earthquakes, floods, droughts, fires, etc. are a part of the natural cycles on earth. However, when such hazards happen to a certain section of our society which is susceptible to such hazards, it can have major consequences on the individuals, families, and society on a whole. Hence, the impacts of disasters, whether natural or man-made, have both environmental and human dimensions. Hence, human intervention in the form of deforestation, agricultural processes, forest management practices, etc. can at times have a negative impact on the society in the form of storm, floods, landslides, silting, groundwater contamination, etc. Let's observe this video as well. Dear learners, we all know that one needs to have an harmony between environment and society for a healthy life and growth of civilization. Our natural resources need to be protected and nurtured so as to create a balance between one and all. Disasters are some form of calamity which may strike the human race at any time and leave a lasting impact. They can be natural or man-made. Hence, an earthquake is simply an event in nature and not a disaster unless it causes injury or destroys property or thousands are killed due to it. This can be effectively understood using the following example. An earthquake struck San Fernando, California in the year 1971. The quake registered 6.4 on the Richter scale. However, the population over 7 million people only suffered minor damages and saw around 60 deaths. 2 years later, another earthquake of a magnitude of 6.2 struck Managua, Nicaragua, and the city which was reduced to rubble, killing an estimated around 6,000 people were killed. Let's do this activity. Kindly enlist what you have learned from the above example and justify. From the above, it is clear that disasters can be defined as an occurrence which can be natural or man-made, causing severe damage, injury, or life of property, and causing disruption in the society and affecting the natural environment adversely. In lieu of the above, due to disasters striking very often, disaster management has become the in thing now in the present day scenario, since calamities, whether it is landslide, floods, tsunami, earthquake, etc., keep on striking one after another. Hence, a need has been felt for an effective organization, direction, and use of various means to counter the disaster effectively, and these frequent disasters calls for an effective disaster management strategy. Hence, the role of disaster managers has become very pertinent because Any miscalculation at their end can play havoc with the lives of the unprepared disaster victims and in turn have a negative effect on the environment on a whole. We would be covering few of the important natural and man-made disasters in the history of humankind through various case studies. The first case study which we would be studying is the Bhopal gas tragedy, Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, India. 3rd December 1984. This tragedy is known as the worst man-made tragedy in the history of mankind, which had an adverse effect on the environment in the long run. This tragedy happened in the factory of Union Carbide of India Limited, a subsidiary of the multinational company Union Carbide Corporation, due to the leakage of methyl isocyanate gas. During a chilly, windy December night, when the city of Bhopal was almost asleep, the tragedy struck at around midnight. In the factory, the workers of night shift around 11:30 a.m. realized that something was wrong in the factory since their eyes were itching badly. The methyl isocyanate tank was under heavy pressure to release the gas since the same was not designed to withstand the increased pressure. This finally forced the emergency venting of pressure from the MIC holding tank and releasing large volumes of toxic gases in the atmosphere. Let's see a small video of the tragedy. Now, dear learners, what was the impact of this leakage of gas? Let's study. Impact of the Bhopal gas tragedy. Since this gas had high density, the gas clouds formed stayed close to the ground, and this caused coughing, vomiting, and severe eye irritation and a feeling of suffocation. Thousands of people died immediately from the effects of the gas, and many died in panic. There were mass cremations and funerals in the following days. It is estimated, unofficially, that around 20,000 people died due to the effect of this gas, and another 1 lakh to 2 lakh people were estimated to have permanent injuries. The leaves of the trees of the nearby areas turned yellow and withered away. Even today, the after effects of the tragedy loom large over Bhopal. Hence, dear learners, what do we learn from this tragedy? Or what are the lessons we have learned? Can you please just identify it? Few of the lessons which we have learned from the Bhopal gas tragedy are as follows. One lesson which we as human civilization has learned is that prevention is always better than cure. This tragedy was something which could have been averted and had there been adequate precautionary measures in place. This tragedy was more about negligence and ignoring safety measures by reducing cost to the company. Hence, there was in fact no backup plan which could have averted this tragedy. If the precautionary measures would have been in place, thousands of lives could have been saved. Second, the disaster served as an eye-opener to the bureaucrats and politicians across India. The Department of Environment was converted to a full-fledged Ministry of Environment and Forest in the year 1985, and this is a primary central government agency for coordinators, planning and promoting the environmental programs across India. The company's profits seemed more important than investing on the safety measures. It is also surprising to note as to how permission was granted to having such an hazardous plant in the Bhopal city. Hence, dear learners, red tapeism needs to end if one needs to create a society which is sustainable for future generations. Fourth, A study conducted by Greenpeace revealed that various residual environmental aspects still lingers on in Bhopal even after so many years of the tragedy. The contamination of underground water, soil, and effects on human body pose serious threats to the future generations. Hence, dear learners, this disaster is one of its kinds in the history of mankind, which has left a lasting impact on the environment and society, and its after effects are still visible on the coming generations as well. Let's do this activity. Dear learners, kindly enlist few more important lessons which you have learned from this disaster. Now let us study another interesting case study showing the unsustainable strategy used for establishment of industry at the cost of environment and society. The Coca-Cola factory at Plachimada. The Coca-Cola factory at Plachimada is a classic example of industrial development at the cost of harming the environment by unsustainable means of extraction of natural resources. The factory was established in the year 1999 and its operation started in Kerala on 8 October 1999 when the company officially applied to Perumati Grama Panchayat for permission to set up a bottling unit in Plachimada and thus successfully acquired 40 acres of marshy land area which is legally not permitted for industrial purposes under the Kerala Land Utilization Act 1967. The company utilized large amounts of groundwater of the said area. The soft drinks like Coca-Cola, Miranda, 7-Up, Sprite, Fanta and Kinley soda were produced at this plant. The coming up of this plant provided various employment opportunities to the locals of the area. The wastewater from the plant after treatment was used for recharging the groundwater reservoir and the sludge from the factory was sold to the nearby farmers as fertilizer. However, the reality was different from what was said by the management. There was no environmental impact assessment by the government or the factory management before its establishment. As the production began, a series of environmental issues came up, like water scarcity, contamination of soil, health hazards, etc. There were also no real mechanisms to estimate the actual volume of the water extracted by the company. Hence, dear learners, what was the impact of the Coca-Cola plant at Plachimada? The impact was multifold and it is as follows. There was a scarcity of drinking water in the area and major sources of drinking water dried up in the region. The groundwater quality analysis exposed high levels of hardness, salinity, alkalinity and presence of various unwanted chemical components etc. which was not suitable for drinking. The solid waste or sludge which was distributed as fertilizer contained high levels of heavy metals. Hence, the once fertile land had become a graveyard of industrial waste and thus got polluted in the due course of time. The polluted water and soil resulted in serious health problems amongst the residents of Plachimada. The health hazards were like cough, burning eyes, pain in abdomen, low birth weight, etc. Due to reduction in agriculture, there was a steep fall in the employment opportunities in the region and people started leaving the area in search of work and for better opportunities. Hence, what are the lessons we have learned from the Plachimada case? Firstly, a proper environmental impact assessment needs to be carried out whenever any company is established in any area. The solid waste needs to be disposed of in a sustainable manner so as not to harm the environment. Overexploitation of resources needs to be avoided and this can only be done by effective monitoring mechanisms in place by the government machinery. Thus, the Plachimada case study has shown the need for sustainable strategies so as to make future projects environmental friendly, economically feasible, and socially viable in the interest of future generations. Let us do one more activity. Can you find out and write a similar case study of a project which had unsustainable exploitation of environment? So dear learners, that's all for this module. Hope you must have understood the importance of disaster management and how disasters, whether natural or man-made, have a great impact on our environment and society. We would continue with our case studies in the next module as well. Bye for now and have a good day.